Good morning, everybody, and welcome. I hope you've had a good week and that everything, your lookout is fine, as they say on the Weather Channel. I see my eyes are a bit red. I have not done a lot in this past week. I don't know why, to be honest. I think it's just plain laziness. Anyway, it's a beautiful day in South Africa, not so sunny. We've had quite a bit of rain overnight here in Joburg. This is the weather my daughter loves. She really enjoys some cloudy, overcast weather. When I was a child, I also did the same. It was the perfect weather for reading a book and enjoying a good movie, which no doubt she is, although I hope she's getting some schoolwork done. As far as schools are concerned, South Africa still hasn't decided when the kids are going to be going back. They were supposed to let us know yesterday whether the kids are going back next week. In a phased approach, because our lockdown is going into a level 4. They've now allocated levels to it, and we're currently in a level 5, which is a complete lockdown of everything except essential services. And then next week they are allowing some of the industries to go back to work. It's more like mining and manufacturing and those kinds of places. Our retail is still very much locked down, although they did say that we can start going and getting some winter clothes, which, by the looks of the weather, is a good thing. I know that my kids have grown a lot, so they are going to be in need of some winter clothes. So just chatting about all of these things, I wanted to know how you guys are doing. How are you coping? How has this all affected you? I listened to an interesting podcast last night from Bethel Church. They do a weekly podcast, and I mean, usually it's like a live of, well, not a live, it's like a recording of his sermon that they gave. But it's kind of eerie because Chris Valentin is one of the preachers that I like to listen to, one of the people there, and he is usually very, very funny. Now, granted, it is very funny, but I think he's dependent on the reaction of the people that he's speaking to. So I think some of it gets a bit lost. But I enjoy listening to him because he gets very emotional, and you do feel like he's really, really talking to you. Anyway, his sermon was on humility, and really that he believes, and I agree with him, that if we are going to be getting through this time and through this whole virus scenario, we are going to need to be humble. And humility and being humble really involves being in service of others and helping other people. And I think a lot of us are doing that in any event. But for others, it's a little bit harder to do. I mean, if you look at the news, and don't watch the news if you're prone to getting very anxious. But if I watch some of the international leaders, I think, my word, I don't know how they got there. I'm quite happy with what our government is doing at the moment. The president has been very calm and very human in his approach and the way that he speaks to us. And I appreciate that, because I think we sometimes forget that these people are just humans. They also have feelings, and they also can fumble things. He had quite a fumble last week. I want to try something. This is irritating. Last week he had a fumble on TV. Yeah, that's better. I can actually see the mess behind me too. He had a bit of a fumble on TV because he was trying to show people how to put your mask on. And it was actually quite funny because he had a little bit of a struggle with it. So talking about masks, last week when they started talking about the kids having to go back to school, I was a little bit concerned because masks in general aren't available here. I then found out that Idea Dis-Chem has been overcharging on masks. So I thought, well, now that people know that, they're probably not going to go and buy them. So I went to Dis-Chem, and Teresa's notes, I do believe that they really, really are overcharging. I mean, 15 Rand for a mask that really, I don't think costs more than 50 cents. Yeah, so they had some. So I went and got more for the elastic, because elastic is very, very scarce at the moment. And besides which, the haberdashery shops aren't open. So unless you've got elastic in your stash, you're going to struggle to find the elastic. So yes, I was going to use the elastic from the surgical masks, and then I decided, no, actually, no, I shouldn't be doing that, because those masks are probably going to be a good backup for the kids to just have in their bags. And then I also thought, you know what, they need to be carrying a few extra masks with them, so that if they get to school and they have friends that don't have masks, at least they can dish one out. Although I don't know how they're going to get to school without one, because over the weekend, the government has said that if you do go out, it's now mandatory to be wearing a mask. Anyway, so back to making the masks. The Quilting Society, the Quilting Guild in South Africa, sent out a few patterns for people to try. At that stage, the rumor was still that we need to make cloth masks for our essential workers, which wasn't true. I mean, they need to have the really heavy guns. So those patterns came out, and I tried a few, and I decided, no, this one is probably the best one. It's got two different colors on either side. Now, as far as the elastics go, I tried a few different ones. I tried my husband's that he needs to use when he goes out. He does our shopping, because only one of us can go out, and Jonathan's the best one to do all of our shopping. He's way more organized. He knows exactly what he wants, and he's very particular about what we buy. So his, I put some ribbon on so that he can tie it around his face and tie it behind his head, which worked fine. No issue with it, but I imagined that the kids at school would be fumbling with the ribbons and be full of nonsense, playing the fool and teasing kids and whatnot by, undoing them. Like nowadays they would snap your bra strap and pull your ponytail. I don't know if kids still do that. But yeah, so I thought that's not going to work. So then I decided to try what people have also suggested, and that is hairbands. And I have to be honest, hairbands work like an absolute charm. And you can get them at the pharmacies, and the pharmacies are open, and things for your hair and hygiene and all these things are considered essential. So you can buy elastics. So Jono picked these up. It's a pack of 100 from Discam. And I don't know if you can see that, but it was only 20 bucks. So 100 elastics for 20 bucks. I don't think you can buy a normal sewing elastic for this price. And it works very well. It's very easy for them to just attach it. Now I'm going to do what Ramaphosa did, to just attach it to your over your ears. It's not uncomfortable. I think maybe if you had to wear it for the whole day, it probably might become uncomfortable. But if the kids complain, then I'll make a plan. And then, of course, then we found out last night that they still haven't decided how the kids are going to be going back to school or when. My youngest is in grade 7, which is the final year of primary school. And the rumor has been going around that the grade 7s and the grade 12s will be the first kids to be going back to school. So I thought, no, well, Nathan is going to need a mask. Not that he's impressed with this one. This one, he said, can be his sister's. He wants one like his father, which is in blue and obviously a little bit more masculine. So he said, no, he wants that. So that's fine. So I'm going to be making a few masks. So like I said, the hair elastics work like a charm, and it's easy to get. You're not going to struggle to find them. So that's great stuff. Then last week, and I'll put the laptop on top of the lot I was going to show you. Anyway, so last week I got my daughter a little bit busy with cutting out some hexagons out of my scrap pieces of fabric, attaching them to applique paper, and I had one idea in my mind of how I was going to use this, and then I thought, okay, but hang on, let me just count how many hexagons I've got. So Kira had cut out over 350 hexagons, and that's the little hexagons. So the inside bit, which is a 1-inch side measurement. So that's a lot of hexagons. So I got out EQ8 and started planning a quilt on there. And I had something in my mind of what I was going to do. So I colored some fabric. I dyed some fabric, and I was very happy with the colors. And I still had this picture in my mind, but I wasn't 100% happy. So talking about this, I sort of want to talk to you about inspiration and where inspiration comes from. So yes, I had this idea in my mind, and it had a lot to do with what was going on at the moment. I'm going to be a bit vague because I have decided that what I'm going to be doing, if it turns out well, I'm going to enter it into next year's Quilt Festival, if it happens. I mean, life's going to be different. We don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and think that next year there is going to be a Quilt Festival here in South Africa. So yeah, I'm being a bit vague because part of that idea is still going to go into what I'm now planning on doing. So, inspiration. I find inspiration in nature. I did a little write-up on my website, and if you go and read it, although I've changed things lately, but if you go and read it, you'll see that I talk a lot about nature. I'm a bushveld child. I grew up with the bush in my life. We were there regularly. We had farms in the family, so we were out in the bush quite often. So the bush is part of my life. And I mean, I think a lot of people, not I won't say most, but I think a lot of people in South Africa do consider bush like their happy place, their home place. The other place is the coast. I mean, a lot of people love the oceans, the beaches. My husband loves the beaches and the coast. But I'm a bushveld child. So you'll find a lot of nature and bush and these elements in my designs, like the animal designs that I released at the beginning of the month, things like that. It's always going to be related to nature, be it leaves, trees, flowers, animals. But I also have a great love for the abstract and for metaphors. You'll see that if you go onto the website, I'll post the link. If you go onto the website, you'll see there was one that I did, I think it was in 2018, called Somebody's War, which really talks to Susie Snowflake and how depression affects my life. So inspiration comes from strange and wonderful places, and I believe that when inspiration strikes, just give yourself over to it, which is probably why I didn't get a lot done last week, because this quilt was playing in my mind a lot. And like I said, not the whole, but some of the idea has changed. So I sort of think, don't force it. I mean, if you've got things that you want to use and you want to finish things up, then just go with it. But if in that you get an idea in mind, just quickly scribble it down onto a piece of paper or draw it onto a piece of paper and see where that goes. Last year we had the Quilting Festival in South Africa as well. We have it every second year. And I mean, even with that, I had planned on entering a quilt, but I drew out quite a few of my ideas, and nothing really stuck with me. Nothing really struck me as, now that's going to be beautiful, or you really, really need to do that. So if I don't have that, I don't do it, because then it's just going to be a mess, and I'm going to end up chucking the whole thing in the bin and yeah, just not be happy. So inspiration, yeah, just let it come. Don't try and force it. Right, so the hexagons are going to go onto a quilt, and I'm probably going to enter into the Quilt Festival next year. I've never entered into competitions. I actually don't like having my things judged, so this might end up still being a fool's errand, but we'll see what it turns out as. I don't like being judged, and I don't believe in pieces of paper. In the corporate world, people put a lot of value on pieces of paper, and you know that it certifies that you are this or that and the other. And I know that there's ways to fudge these things. So yeah. I've lost my belief in pieces of paper. So Kerith cut out all these hexagons out of scraps, and if you follow me on social media, you'll see that I've been paying a bit of attention to my scraps. I'm trying to organize my studio. As you can see in the background there, you can see my daughter decided that she's giving up her collection of fabric. Quilting never really took with her just yet. Mine came very late in life, so there's still hope. Anyway, so she gave me all of her fabric, so I've now got to sort that out and add that into my stash, and my stash is quite a mess. So I thought, well, let's first sort out the scraps, because I've got a tendency to just go and find the stuff that matches in my stash and use that and work with that. And then I end up with a whole lot of scraps. So I've been going through my scraps, and what I usually do is I cut them into squares. When I finish something, I cut them into squares, or I cut them into strips, 2.5-inch strips. Now, I found that when I went into my box of 2.5-inch strips, I had become very, very lazy, because there were a few 3 inches, there were a few 3.5s, there were quite a lot of 2-inch strips, which I don't know why I ever cut a 2-inch strip. But anyway, I cut a 2-inch strip and chucked it into the box. So a lot of that I've tossed out. And then there was a few 2.25-inch strips. So the 2.25-inch strips I've kept aside, because I could probably use that for a scrappy quilt binding. So in those strips, my son asked me last week, Nathan asked me for a nice big pillow. So I thought, well, at the end of last year, I made one for Kerith using the jelly roll race method with a jelly roll. And now I've got all these strips. So I just quickly put them together yesterday. Literally just went through them, made sure I had all my 2.5-inch strips, and I just stitched them together. So now I've ended up with a reasonably big piece, and it is going to give him a nice, huge, big, chunky pillow. Whether he's going to be happy with the purples and the pinks in there, I don't know. But if he's not, I've got a nice pillow. So yeah, so I'm going to be doing that, probably be finishing that off today. So let me know what you're doing with your scraps, and if you've gone through your scraps at all. I've still got all my squares. I haven't decided what to do with them. There's quite a few of them that are the same. So I sort of think I probably started a project and cut all these squares and then decided, oh, bugger it, I'm not going to do that. So I've got those. And then Kerith took all my small little pieces that I was too lazy to cut into strips or squares, and she turned those into the hexagons for me. So I've got all those hexes that I'm going to be using. So let me know what you're doing with your scraps. I know I did a little bit of a series on leftover quilts. It was in March. So yeah, but this is another idea. This is something else that you can do. With those, I was lucky because I had a lot of fabric from my mum. These are all my scraps and leftovers. So yeah, let's have a bit of a check on a leftover party maybe. Let me know what you're doing. Let me know how you are, please. And yeah, look after yourself. Look after your loved ones. Take care, and I'll see you next week. Keep well.